You know that feeling when you have like 50 tabs open in your browser, your phone is buzzing with 3 different group chats, and you're trying to remember if you actually replied to that urgent email.
Or if you just thought about replying to it.
Exactly. We call it multitasking, but I think our brains probably call it a panic attack.
It's just a state of constant mental clutter.
Right. Brain fog, static.
I know.
And usually when we talk about fixing this, we go straight to the hacks, you know, the Pomodoro technique, noise-canceling headphones, all those apps.
But today, we're looking at a source that takes a completely different approach.
It really does. We're still talking about mental hygiene, sure, but from a perspective that, I mean, most productivity gurus just completely ignore.
It's a fascinating pivot. Instead of just, you know, clearing the cache of your brain for efficiency's sake.
To get more done.
Right, so you can crank out more widgets. The source material we have today frames clarity as a matter of spiritual survival. It treats focus as a form of discipline and, surprisingly, endurance.
Okay, so let's set the scene for this. Our primary source today is an audio message. It's from Pastor Hu Ziquang, titled Managing the Mind, and it's dated February 6th, 2026.
And that date is crucial. Before anyone tunes out because they hear the word pastor, that date tells us so much.
Tell us why.
Well, February 6, 2026 is a Friday. And in the cultural context of Taiwan, where this message comes from, they are standing right on the precipice of the Lunar New Year, the new spring.
Which is a massive deal.
Huge.
Right.
And traditionally, this is a time for sweeping the dust. You clean your house top to bottom to sweep away bad luck and make room for good fortune.
So he's using that cultural moment.
He's using that very tangible physical act to say, okay, you're scrubbing your floors, you're organizing your pantry, but what about your head? What about your internal world?
I love that. Don't just dust the shelves, dust off your soul. So our mission today is to unpack this framework. We're going to look at a very specific ancient metaphor for focus that, I'll be honest, was kind of baffling at first.
It's a good one.
And then we'll break down this 4-part taxonomy of work that completely changed how I see my day job. And finally, we'll land on this concept he calls the glory of persistence.
The glory of persistence. It sounds so epic, doesn't it?
It does.
But as we'll see, it's rooted in some very gritty reality.
It really is. So let's jump in. The source anchors this whole idea of mental hygiene in a text from 1 Peter, specifically chapter 1, verse 13. And the phrase he uses, gird up the loins of your mind. It sounds so...
archaic.
Yeah, archaic, like something from a Shakespeare play you just nod at but don't actually understand.
It certainly doesn't sound like modern productivity advice.
Yeah.
But if we strip away the King James language, the mechanics of the metaphor are incredibly practical. You just have to picture the wardrobe of the ancient Near East.
So we're talking robes, long tunic-style things.
Exactly. Long, flowing garments. Great for ventilation in the desert heat, I'm sure, but terrible for action. If you needed to run or fight or do any kind of manual labor, that loose fabric was a liability.
You'd trip.
You'd trip. You would tangle around your legs. You'd be totally ineffective.
So girding wasn't just a mental state. It was a literal physical action. You reconfigured your clothes.
Right. You would literally gather up all that excess fabric of the tunic, pull it up between your legs, and then tuck it securely into a belt or a sash around your waist. It basically turns a long skirt into something like shorts.
Okay.
It transforms you from the state of rest to a state of readiness.
That makes perfect sense physically, but the source applies this to the mind. So if the robe is our thought process, what's the loose fabric we're supposed to be tucking in?
And that is the question, isn't it? The source defines that loose fabric as mental clutter. It's the wandering thoughts, the fragmented attention, the anxieties about tomorrow, the regrets about yesterday.
All the stuff that gets tangled.
All of it. The argument is that you cannot run the race of life or faith in this context if your mental fabric is dragging on the ground. You will trip over your own distractions.
That is a vivid image. It's not just about focusing, it's about actively securing the things that trip you up. But the source is specific. It doesn't just say focus on your work. It says to focus on the grace brought by the revelation of Jesus Christ. I'll play devil's advocate here. Isn't that just a religious way of saying be optimistic? Like, don't worry, be happy.
That's a really common misconception. But the source makes a very sharp distinction. Optimism is, hoping things will work out. The hope mentioned here is more of a theological expectation.
Now so?
It's about looking at the horizon line, specifically at the return of the Lord, and using that future certainty to fuel your endurance right now in the present.
So it's the difference between hoping the bus shows up?
And knowing the bus is coming at a specific time, so you start gathering your bags.
Got it. Okay.
The source puts it this way. Perspective determines result. Attitude determines action. If your perspective is locked on the immediate grind, the traffic, the deadline, the annoyance, your result is stress.
But if your perspective is locked on that ultimate destination,
You can handle a bumpy ride.
it's like if you know the vacation destination is amazing, you can handle a turbulent flight a lot better than if you think the plane is just flying in circles forever.
That is the perfect analogy. And that turbulent flight actually brings us right to the next section. Because the source shifts from this internal mindset, the girded mind, to how that actually looks when you get up and go to work.
Yes, this was the part I found so clarifying. The source breaks down work into 4 distinct categories, and I think everyone listening will be able to place themselves in at least one of these right now.
It's a very helpful taxonomy. It's almost like a hierarchy of motivation.
Okay, let's run through them. Type 1. The source calls this duty, or in the original context, benfen.
Benfen. Yeah, and that's a concept that carries a lot of weight in Chinese culture. It implies one's part or one's proper station. It's work driven by instinct and obligation.
And the example given is so visceral. A mother getting up in the middle of the night to feed a baby or change a diaper.
The 3 a.m. wake-up call. The work nobody wants to do. There's no salary for that. You're not getting a bonus. You're losing sleep. But you do it. Why?
Because you have to. Because you're the parent. It isn't really a choice.
Exactly. It's duty.
Yeah.
It's just built into the role. You do it because of who you are in that relationship.
Okay, so that's the baseline. Then type 2 is what most of us do all day, the professional job, or gong.
This is transactional. It's office workers, farmers, laborers, business people. You give your labor, you get a reward. You trade your skill for pay. It's the standard definition of work.
And the motivation is external, the paycheck.
Right.
Simple enough.
Right.
Then we have type 3, the volunteer, zigong.
And this moves into altruism. This is working in a library, helping at a hospital. The key here is that it's unpaid, but it's meaningful. You're contributing to society out of love or a desire to help.
So we have duty, job, and volunteer, but the source introduces a 4th category that seems to sit above all of them, holy work, or shengong. Now, my first assumption was that this just meant, becoming a priest or working for a church, but the source implies something much more complex.
And that's a crucial distinction. In a strict sense, yes, it can mean serving within a religious institution, but the deep dive insight here is about the object of the service.
The object.
In the first 3 categories, you serve a baby, or a boss, or the community. In Shengong, the work is directed specifically toward God.
But how does that work if I'm an accountant? I can't exactly file taxes at God. That doesn't really make sense.
Well, the source argues that you actually can. It's all about the higher reminder.
A higher reminder.
Yeah, if you believe you are working under the gaze of an omniscient being, the whole accountability structure changes. You aren't just answering to a manager who might not notice if you cut corners. You're answering to the deity you believe in.
That definitely raises the stakes a little bit.
It raises them significantly. Because if your boss is human, you can hide mistakes, you can spin the numbers. But if your boss is omniscient, well, that changes how you approach your work. It demands a level of integrity that goes way beyond the employee handbook.
That actually leads perfectly into the next segment, because if you're trying to do holy work, how do you even measure success? Because in the corporate world, success is a promotion, it's a raise, it's a corner office.
And this is where the source gets really critical of our human judgment. Pastor Hu cites a whole list of Chinese idioms to describe how people usually look at work. And without the cultural context, they sound poetic, but they're actually pretty biting critiques.
Yeah, let's unpack these, because I did not catch the nuance at first. The first one was Yerenasianpu,
Which literally translates to a rustic person offering the sun.
which sounds nice, like, here, have some sun.
It sounds nice to us, but culturally it implies a very humble, almost laughable contribution. The idea is like a peasant who discovers the winter sun, feels warm, and thinks, oh, I must give this warmth to the king.
But the king has furs, he has fires.
Exactly. The king doesn't need the peasant's son. So it's a way of saying your contribution is cute, but ultimately useless. It highlights the gap in status.
Ouch. Okay, what's next?
So you have Gufeng Zisheng,
Which is self-admiration.
or just straight up narcissism. Doing the work just to look at it yourself and say, wow, aren't I great? It's work performed for the ego.
Got it. And the last one was Kwagao Higua.
Highbrow. Or Literally, the song is so high-pitched, few can sing along.
No.
It means you're too advanced, you're too smart for the masses, you're out of touch.
And the source uses these idioms to show how we usually judge work. Right, we judge the final product. Is it impressive? Is it popular? Is it smart enough?
Exactly. We look at the ego or the output. But the source argues that holy work operates on a completely different metric. Faithfulness to the master.
And to prove this, the source drops some really heavy historical examples.
Yeah, this took a sharp turn. I was expecting, work hard and you'll succeed. But then he brings up Isaiah and Jeremiah.
Two of the major prophets, giants of the faith. But by human standards, their careers were, they were absolute disasters.
Total failures.
Yeah.
They preached salvation, they spoke the truth, and what did they get for it? Oppression, contempt. Their own people, the nobles, their compatriots, turned against them. They were injured and rejected.
If they had a LinkedIn profile, it would look pretty bleak. Job title, prophet, accomplishments, ignored by everyone, thrown in a cistern.
Exactly. And then the source brings up John the Baptist, and this one really stood out.
The source calls out the absurdity of his death.
It is absurd. Here's a man who preached, the kingdom of heaven is near.
Yeah.
He baptized Jesus. He's a spiritual giant. You expect his story to end in a blaze of glory.
And instead, he gets beheaded because of a dance.
Yes. The source highlights that specific detail. A small woman, a dancer, asks the king for his head on a platter at a birthday party. It's just so capricious. It's an almost random tragedy based on a whim.
So the source points all this out not to depress us, but to say what?
To strip away our transactional view of faith and work. The lesson is that John the Baptist was faithful. Isaiah was faithful. Their success wasn't about status or money or even staying alive. It was doing what they were called to do.
So even if the outcome looks like a complete disaster to the world, even if you're the rustic person offering the sun and everyone just laughs at you, it can still be holy work.
Yes. And that brings us to the core concept of this whole thing.
Yeah.
The glory of persistence.
The glory of persistence. So how do we take this idea, which, let's be honest, is drawn from some pretty intense tragedy, and apply it to someone who's just trying to get through a Tuesday in middle management?
The source challenges the listener to completely reframe their daily life. It asks us to move beyond seeking a beautiful report card.
Which is hard. We love the gold star. We love being employee of the month.
We do. But the source suggests viewing your regular professional job, that type 2 gong work, as type 4 holy work.
So my accounting job becomes the holy work.
If the mindset changes. The source says it's about using your professional skills as a vehicle for faith, but it gets very practical. It's not just some internal feeling. It says add a bit more enthusiasm.
More smiles.
More encouragement. It's about the atmosphere you bring into the room.
Okay, can I push back on that for a second? Because telling a burnt-out employee to just smile more can sound like toxic positivity. It can feel really dismissive.
It absolutely can be.
Yeah.
But I think the source is getting at something else here. It's not smiling because everything is great. It's smiling as an act of defiance against the clutter and the gleam. It's bringing encouragement into a toxic workplace because your energy isn't drawn from the workplace.
It's drawn from that girded mind.
Exactly, from that hope in the future.
I see. So you're the thermostat, not the thermometer. You're setting the temperature rather than just reflecting it.
That's a great way to put it. The source phrases it as turning the workplace into a place where God's name is exalted through your behavior. When the mindset shifts from I'm doing this for a paycheck to I'm doing this as a service to God, the work itself produces spiritual value, regardless of what the profession is.
So you could be sweeping floors or running a conglomerate?
And the value is in the persistence and the attitude. That's the glory. It's not in the applause, it's in the persistence itself.
And that connects right back to the beginning, girding the loins of the mind. You can't persist like that if your mind is tripping over clutter or if you're obsessed with whether people are applauding you.
You have to be tucked in, focused on that grace to keep smiling when the work gets hard.
So what does this all mean for us? We've gone from the visual of the tucked-in robe through the 4 types of work duty, Job, volunteer, and holy work, and faced the hard reality that faithfulness doesn't always equal worldly success.
But we've landed on this pretty empowering idea that we can transform our daily grind into something significant just through our attitude.
And the source ends by reconnecting to the listener in a really nice way. Remember, it was recorded on a Friday.
Right. Pastor Hugh reminds everyone, the workday is starting, but the weekend is coming. And he encourages them to use that time for the reflection we talked about at the start.
It's a call to pause, to actually do that mental cleaning.
Which is crucial. We so often just crash into the weekend, we numb out with Netflix.
Yeah.
But the source is asking for some intentionality. Use that new spring energy to actually reset.
Which brings us to our final thought for you to chew on today. The source poses 3 challenge questions, and I want to leave you with a variation of them. We are constantly auditing things in our lives. We audit our finances, we audit our schedules, we check our calorie intake.
But when was the last time you audited your hope?
That's the question. To what degree are you actually conscious of grace in your daily grind? Or are you just staring at the pavement trying not to trip over your own road?
If perspective determines result, as the source claims, then maybe changing where you look might just change everything about how you work.
Something to think about as you head into your day. Thanks for diving in with us.
Hopefully with a little less mental clutter.
Exactly. See you next time on The Deep Dive.